where people create greatness is where they're like willing to A, do something for the long run, and B, really grind through it for the long run. And that just happens when you're doing something you're excited about and energized about.
Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney. This is an interesting story. I've been trying to get this famous guy on the pod. I'm gonna lay the foundation for this relationship because this is pure. I'm gonna walk you through. This is Chris Williams, by the way. Not only is he a great person, he does our bookkeeping for the HVAC company. That's not why he's on the podcast. So the only way I knew who you were was I was going to a Dallas event with a buddy, and you happened to release the episode on Will Smith's podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when I heard it, and I was like, oh, this guy seems pretty cool. But we had been chatting a little bit, and I was setting up a golf game with entrepreneurs that were going. So this guy comes out to the golf course. I know the other two guys. I don't know him, but he's very hyped about it, and he's late, but he got me coffee, so we're good. and these guys like to play. These are my best friends, so they like to play for some money, and so me and Chris get partnered up, and he's got to be somewhere later with his fiance. But we kept tying on the last hole, and we played like 8 extra holes, but we won.
That's right.
But there's a joke going around I've heard on a couple podcasts. If you really want to see who somebody is, play a round of golf with them, right?
Yeah.
And you were fighting for every shot. You were in it to win it, and I really appreciate your competitiveness.
I love golf because no matter how bad of a day you're having, and actually we both played pretty well that day, but you can always go execute the next shot really well. And that's just that's what I love about it. There's a lot of things I love about it, but in particular, it's just man, no matter what happened, you have an opportunity right in front of you to make it all better. And that's how many things in life do you just get to move on to the next thing that quick? And yeah, competing is fun as hell. I played golf this weekend. I made a par putt on the last hole, and I bogeyed the last 2, and I was like, I don't want to have 3 bogeys in a row. I would have been so mad. And that made my day. It didn't matter at all, right? It doesn't actually matter in life, but having a competitive outlet is very important.
I love it. So
golf provides that for me.
Yeah. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of get going from there.
Yeah, fun to be on. Thanks for having you. And that honestly was a really fun day because it was 4 entrepreneurs talking about their different stories and bet and gambling and carrying at the end and really carrying because we had to go to another playoff hole and look where we are now. So yeah, look, my background into this world is I guess in a lot of ways relatively quote unquote common for what I ultimately did, which is I did a search and acquired a small business. My professional career before that was I worked in finance, I worked in investment banking, and then I worked in an investing role at a private equity firm and went to business school. That's the very standard path for kind of post-college finance careers. Thought about going back to the investment world, but kind of wanted to bet on myself and wanted to do something that I thought if it went really well, I would be incredibly energized about doing for the next 20 years. It's the best piece of career advice I've ever gotten in my life, which is assume you're going to succeed. And then if you're going to succeed, are you excited about that success? And that was the light bulb that went off for me, which was I can go back to investing. Great career. You make a shit ton of money. But I wasn't that excited about doing that for 20 years. But then buy a small business, grow it, also make a lot of money, hopefully. That sounded like the most compelling, energizing thing I could go do. So then boom, go do that. That was my decision criteria. And yeah, I searched for a business to buy. A lot of your audience probably knows somewhat about that path, the search fund. I didn't raise money. I just bought a small business. I bought a bookkeeping business, and we do payroll, bookkeeping, invoicing. We manage your finances for small businesses.
Dude, we got to highlight something for a minute because this is the number one thing I say to my coaching clients.
Yep.
Is that you said that, do I want to do this for the foreseeable future? I don't think that we as people think in terms of how long we're actually going to be doing what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're 20 or you're 25 or you're listening right now, you're 30, 40, pardon me, 40. Like a lot of my clients are 50 or 25. You got another 40 years. And if you think you're just going to hang it out and sit at the beach, that ain't this society anymore. Okay, first of all. Second of all, I also think that like a couple weeks ago, I was like, Uber, like just, you have stress and you have stress in your life. And I go, what if I were to take this and go, do I want to be doing this for the next 30 years? If that answer is yes, then where's the stress?
So, then you're where you want to be. Yeah. I mean, I think that like same guy, I got to give him credit. Graham Weaver, he runs a super successful private equity firm, but
man crush. Yeah.
Alpine, Apex, you know his world, but he's got a blog. He was a professor of mine at business school, and hey, assume you're going to be successful was one of his frameworks. And the other thing was, he's like, look, everybody can go grind and do a job for a few years. We're all have the ability to kind of just like do what we're told, duty, execute, but where people create greatness is where they're like willing to do something for the long run, and B, really grind through it for the long run. And that just happens when you're doing something you're excited about and energized about. And, like passion, I think that gets a lot of kind of debate of like, should you follow your passion? And look, I mean, I think I don't view it as passion. Like my passion, we just talked about, I love to play golf. I'd love to play golf for a living. I'm not that good. Like that ain't happening. But, you should pick something that you're going to be really energized about, because it's going to be hard. It's only going to get harder when you have kids, et cetera. And the ability to power through it and do it for a long time is, I think, you get paid effectively for being willing to do something for a long time. And you're able to do that if it's something that gives you energy.
But I think the and also important part is most people don't take they don't even go to the search, right? They sit in a job for too long. They do this. What do you think was unique that you were just ready to say, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is like, that is the power of going to grad school or taking a professional break or whatever. And obviously, like, I was fortunate to be able to get into business school and to not have to work, and basically spend money for a couple of years, right? Like, I understand that not everybody can take a professional break even for a couple months to think, but I never would have. And I think Twitter is changing this, podcasts are changing this. That's why I think it's so exciting. Like, I love doing podcasts like this, just getting the story more and more out there. Like, I never would have even heard of a search fund if I hadn't gone to business school. I never would have thought that like a 20 at the time 9-year-olds can go like look for a small business to buy and use an SBA loan. Like, that path is getting so much more out there. But for me, I had to have time to just pick my head up and see what other paths were out there. Like, I didn't hate the career I was on. I feel like I had an 85, 90% awesome career path. And, that candidly, sometimes I still think about that because there are some pros in there, but you're never gonna, especially when something's going decent like that, you're never gonna really stop and look around unless you kind of have some sort of break. So for me, it was going to grad school. And then kind of sometimes in life, the decision, like if you looked at it on paper, it was kind of a toss up. There's a lot of reasons to go back to the more standard career path. And sometimes you're just kind of like, screw it, let's go. I want to bet on myself. Let's see if we can make something really special happen over the next 20 years. Like, that was kind of it. It wasn't like the only thing I've ever wanted to do my whole life was run a small business. It was like, I want to do something that's going to energize me. This gives me energy. I think I'm going to like it more. Let's go and shoot for something that takes a job from 90% great to 95% great. Like, let's take that shot. And I think if you try to rationalize this more, it gets harder and harder to do. So at some level, you just got to go.
And I think what's interesting, right? And it's interesting, right? Because it's been 5 years, I think, away from my W-2 now. I wanted to be out 5 years before that, so we'll call it 10 years, really. I have changed my tone. I was very aggressive against, entrepreneurship and everything like that. But I tell you what, man, there are a lot of days that I really wish I was just a sales guy and I
Totally.
can go hit the links on Friday, Saturday, and not have to worry about the 9 billion things, right? But there is pros and cons, and I think, anybody out there that wants to buy a business or start a business, there's plenty of time in the day, especially with technology, to do both and kind of test it out on a low risk scale.
Yeah, that's, and I say that to kids now. I talk to a lot of people who are coming out of business school thinking about going to buy a business. Is just like, just start for a couple months, even while you're in school or while you're in your W-2 job. Like, yeah, you can go raise money to support yourself, to go search for a couple of years. That's like the traditional search fund. But go try it for 2 months before you lock yourself in for 2 years with a bunch of investors, because you may realize you hate it and that you don't want to do this, or that you want to do it in a different form. And we want to be part of an accelerator model, where you've got kind of one person you're working for helping you buy a small business. So, I agree. Like, you got to test it out a little bit to get some examples of like, what are these types of companies you may go buy. And the other thing is, I do think that like you need to talk to or listen to podcasts, people who run small businesses. So yeah, you understand that trade-off. Like, the way I think about it is, I have more autonomy and control in my life than I like ever possibly could have, like, by not having a day-to-day or week-to-week boss. Like, I do have investors who, they don't control me, but like, I do feel responsibility to them. And I feel responsibility to lots of people, my employees, myself, my family. But yeah, day-to-day, I have complete autonomy and control for the most part. And that's, pretty compelling. But I miss not having anything to think about on the weekends. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like you said, that there's, when you run a small business, or, run a startup or do something where you have so much control, it also means every minute is a decision. Do I want to be spending time on the business, growing it, trying to do something with it, working on a problem, or am I okay shutting off for 5 hours? Like, when you're at a W-2, if you don't have work to do, you don't have work to do. Whereas that's not the case here. And I miss that sometimes, for sure.
Guys, let me take a minute to tell you about my buddies over at Lead Hub, Ben and Aaron, the best humans I know. Not only are they amazing at marketing for trade companies, but Ben started his HVAC company in his garage, sold it for multi-million dollars. So when this guy talks, I listen. When we took over Dietz Mechanical, we had 22 reviews in 22 years. In 7 short months, we went from 22 reviews to 107. We went from a 4.2 to a 4.7. We tripled our Facebook presence and we tripled our calls. If you're an HVAC, plumbing, electric, landscaping company, and you're looking for a no BS approach to marketing, you're looking for people who have done it before, you got to go to leadhub.net. I feel like small business ownership is forced personal development.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to my CEO, Ryan, about this. I've never in my life had to rely on a group of people to execute their job. And I don't have control over that. I have 40 employees that are all throughout the community, fixing plumbing leaks, doing HVAC. And we have to get them to understand there's a certain level of responsibility and urgency in the company. And so I have to totally surrender to my success in my based on them and how they feel or what's going on in their life. It is a wild thing when you've ran businesses, just 1 or 2 employees your whole life. Look, my coaching, bro, I click record, I show up, that's it. There's nobody to bother. It's super easy. I know how much I'm making. I'm the last one to get paid, and I only get paid if other people do their job.
Yeah. And like the urge to want to jump in and fix things yourself when they're not going right, but you have to realize that just creates more longer term issues. But also it's like the fine balance where, ultimately, like it's your people that have to do the work. But you also have to own that at the end of the day, every problem is you, and every problem rolls up to the owner, and every problem in the company, like you have to have that mentality without it turning into micromanaging. For sure. Yeah. That's like balance that you've had to learn. I mean, part of the other reason I did this and wanted to run a small business is I felt like it would mature me a lot. And I think that it has, because it's really, you learn what are real problems and what are not problems. Like 80-20 is a forced skill. And something else that I'm very grateful for is the like kind of personal life prioritization it's taught me, because now I have something that I care so much more than I ever did about in my previous career. And I worked a ton of hours, you know, before, but I never like, when I didn't have work to do, it was like, cool, I'm going to go do whatever is on my plate. You know, if it's go out to dinner with friends or go to this concert or go on this trip or whatever. And then when your free time, you know, all of a sudden becomes, hey, you can go use some of that. Look, don't burn out. I don't say I work 24/7. But when now you do have kind of like an option for Sunday afternoon, that's like really valuable time to go work on something kind of on the business with no distractions. It just teaches you what in your life outside of work is like truly important to you,
Mm-hmm.
and what in your life is stuff that you used to do, but like actually you're just doing that because you just had the time. And I think that's a good skill to learn, like what's a true priority to you, and what's not, so that you can really, you know, focus your time on those 2-3 things that matter in life to you, whatever they are. And it's really hard to figure out what those are until you have something else like a business that kind of creates so much time pressure. Like, I don't know if I ever would have done the self-reflection to figure out what really matters to me outside of work until I had this thing where like, man, all I want to do is work on this baby. And then that really taught me what I want to go do in my free time and what I don't.
Totally. I heard a quote this morning from the CEO of Starwood on a podcast. He said, "A leader's job of a business is to absorb the uncertainty, for everybody else and press on."
Totally.
You know,
Chief energy officer.
Yeah, and I heard years ago, Ed Milet say that you will only be successful for the depth that you are comfortable with uncertainty. You know, and I think that it's this.
But I agree, but I think and it's something that, like, I've gotten this feedback from my team on. There's a danger, which is every time there's a problem that comes up, you know, I'm like, okay, cool, like, we'll figure it out. How can we do better next time? You know, bring energy. Thanks for sharing that. Like, it's okay. You know, we'll get through this. Sometimes you gotta like just tell your, you know, sit there next to your team member and be like, yeah, that sucks. Like,
yes,
I'm disappointed too. Instead of like, oh, somebody quit unexpectedly. Okay, well, how are we going to restaff? And what are we going to learn so that next time we hire better, so that we don't have this happen? And it's okay. You know, like, those are my gut responses to all of these things. But sometimes it's like, yeah, someone quit and that sucks. And they don't want to hear from me that it's okay. So it's like, sit with them and be like, hey, this is a bummer, but don't put the stress on them. You know, like, absorb the stress, but don't you have to acknowledge it, because otherwise people just think you're like living in la la land, and overly positive. I've gotten that feedback before. Like, sometimes I'm overly positive and not, you know,
I've made it a habit. I've made it a habit of, like, if I'm not in it, like if I'm having that day, right, which rarely happens, just don't come in. I work from home, because I am, as you stated, I'm an example of the energy that's brought into the thing. Now, here's the problem, though. This happened like a couple months in. The energy needed for a startup and the energy needed for a business that's been running for 22 years.
Totally.
Those are two totally different people. Especially when you have guys that are 20, 30 years older than you. You know, they don't really do the rah-rah, go get them guys. You know, they're there to work because they work, right? And so I've had to pick my places. The younger guys might need that, but not the older people.
Yeah, they don't need life coach. The older guys don't need life coaching from you.
No.
Yeah, I think that, like, it's a fine line, but I got a good piece of advice early on, which I appreciated, which was like, it's okay as a manager. Like, you know, I'm a manager of a group of people who then manage people below them. Like, you know, as a CEO, owner, every level of the company, you know, you should be managing no more than like 5 to 6 people. But it's okay to like manage them a little bit in a different way, because they have different personalities. Like, it's part of the job of the manager to meet their team a little bit where they are. You know, you can't just let your 5 direct reports be like completely no level of standardization. But, you know, the people we lead and manage are people who are 5 incredibly different, amazing species, you know, and so, like, you have to be willing to moderate yourself a little bit and like meet them a little bit where they are. You know, like, you can't be the same guy to all 5 people.
Dude, it's so true how you are. My HVAC service techs, my commercial installers, and my plumbers are the farthest apart from personalities. It's the I mean, it's the same company, but wildly different. The commercial guys, they don't really deal with customers a ton. They're just installing. And then you have the HVAC service guys who are like dealing with customers every day, and then the plumber's dealing with what the plumber's dealing with. So he's dealing with customers got shit everywhere. So they all have their different, like, it's really wild. I took them all out to breakfast separately, and it was just wild to see how different they all were.
Yeah. And like, if you get to know your people, who was I talking to about this recently? But, you know, like the value of a minute of connection and like how much that does to the working relationship. It's like, get to know your people and show that you know them by meeting them a little bit where they are, so to speak. Like, you know, I know who on my team when we start, I have 8 one-on-ones a week, plus or minus, because I've got too many direct reports right now. We're going through growth and need to, you know, we're just at that point where I'm basically going to make a hire or a promotion to sort of step out of one level of management that I do right now. But anyways, like I, you know, ask different questions of those 8 people because I know some of them want to talk about their weekend and some of them like just want to get down to work, and, you know, some of them care about sports and some of them don't. And it's like, just show your people that you care a little bit about them. You know, like Traction EOS is great. We use it. We're going to use it a lot more. But it's got time at the beginning for a little catch up, and don't be so robotic about it that you can't, you know, let someone talk for 3 minutes about their weekend instead of 1. Like,
I put in a rule when we came on board. Like I've had a good life. I travel a lot.
Yeah.
My guys haven't traveled as much. You know, some of them have, a lot of them ex-military, but they were traveling for work or whatever.
Yeah.
So anytime we have a vendor trip or something, none of the owners go. We send the team.
I like that.
Like I just sent 3 guys to a tour visit of a new facility for Carrier, and they got they're obsessed with the Steelers. So they got to go to a Steelers game in a suite. I mean, dude, the picture was like, I mean, they were beside themselves, right?
You've got like teammates for life now.
Yeah, but like that's what you should be doing as an owner. Like you shouldn't be, you know, the biggest issue I ran into in my guys and just hearing about their previous experiences that the owner of a trade business has kept the profits in their pocket. Right? They haven't met the kind of fluctuation of society, right? And that's their biggest issue. So I pride myself on not, you know, being open and honest and saying, you know, the goal is to make you more money, long road to over, you know, that's really what it's about. You're not running a business for a month or two, right? We're not private equity, but we're not running it to sell it. You know, we're running it to build it. And the only way to build it is to build up the team. And it's, you know, I wouldn't lie to you. It's, you know, frustrating sometimes, but it's also amazing sometimes. I have a couple guy I gave a job to that project manager, and now we have his fiance working for us. And then like, I find a personal pride. And then the plumbing manager and his wife is the #1 CSR. She kills it. Like we're supporting families here.
Family.
Yeah, we're supporting families here.
And I think that like, look, especially, you know, my business, like we are, you know, we're running payroll for companies, we're paying their bills, we're doing their invoicing, we're doing their bookkeeping. Like we're using technology for sure. It's tech enabled services. We have automations, we have, you know, workflow management and tasks. But at the end of the day, like my business is 100% my people, you know, the people on our team. And like, if they're happy and well compensated and have flexibility and, you know, feel respected in the workplace and feel like they have a voice, like they're going to do a better job. And that's going to then lead to higher customer retention, which then drives profitability, which is good for me, is good for the team because we have profit share. Like it's, you know, it's perpetual. But it's not like, yes, it's great. It makes you feel good that you're making a difference in the community, but it's also better for the business. Like employee retention is super important of good employees. And so in these service businesses like you and I run, it should be the North Star, which is treat your team appropriately and well so that they stick around longer. Like, that's our mission statement is we want to be the best place to work in remote accounting, and we're not there. We'll never be there. But like, if we move closer to that every year, I guarantee our business will be better and more valuable every year.
When I was finishing up my career in the restaurant business, I worked for a billionaire. He was the most unassuming billionaire you ever met in your entire life. That guy wore a cowboy hat, and if he was in your restaurant, you would not know. Trust me. He was. His wife's family owned Pace Picante sauce. They sold it to Campbell's Soup, but because he's a gangster, part of the contract was that Campbell's had to use 80% of their tomato fields for the history of contracts. So not only did he make for Bill, he still produces their tomatoes. And I realized when I worked for him, because it was a big company, we did multiple different things, food hall, hotel, development, all these things, is that his temperament and how he treated people was how everybody treated people in the company. And it really is the head of the thing and how they approach people. And I don't know if it's an attract thing. I don't know if it's a mimic thing, or you're looking for that person to hire. But I mean, it really was one of the most well-run, like everybody was amazing. It didn't matter who you were.
Yeah.
Like they were here to help. And I say all that. And guys, he's not paying me. Okay. I'm saying this because I believe it. His company and his employees are some of the best people I've ever been in contact with. And I think that all starts because you're such a great person. I know you won't take credit for it because that's not who you are, but you have cultivated an amazing culture. And I think this was a lot of what we talked about on the golf course was culture and stuff like that.
And I think that thank you for saying that. And I do feel really lucky that we've got like kick-ass people who want to be here, who are willing to jump into the weeds with clients when stuff get hairy. When we make mistakes internally, we just went through this last week, we screwed up for a client and they were deservedly frustrated, and our team owned it, and we had to move some team around and they were cool with it. And everybody went into action mode. And that stuff happens when you've built up a well of trust and happiness with your team. Every business is going to have shit go wrong, and you want your people to be willing to attack that problem. And that happens when they trust you and have enjoyed working at the company for a while. And what I just say about culture is you're right, for sure. A lot of it is how, I show up in meetings, how I react to things, how, that filters down. But there's also a lot of structural little tactical things that I think, and I bought this business and this was already happening when I was here. So I've really tried to carry it forward. But the little things we give everybody, and this is just these are just tips. It's not expensive. Everyone can do it. We give everybody a birthday present. We give everybody's spouse a birthday present. We're super quick on the trigger with when somebody's sick, when someone had someone, get hurt, send them flowers, send them soup, whatever. Someone needs an extra day off because they need more bereavement leave. Just give it. I don't care what it costs. The little things like that. Every team we here has a $300 budget for kind of shout out gifts throughout the quarter. So $1,200 a year, it's $50 here on Amazon for this thing or and that goes so much farther than, as long as you're paying your team well, than the incremental comp. Sure, that could all just go into wages and salaries, but showing that you're listening and that when something's wrong and that you care really matters. And, those are systematic things you can set up. Everybody's birthday, everybody's spouse's birthday, you can send gifts, you can have a quarterly budget for little gifts and make your managers spend it. Just little things like that really can pay off over time to make people feel supported and just know that you care about them. It's not all, you got to pay your team well. You got to give them a good, in your world, a safe work environment with the right tools and vehicles that are well maintained. But then a lot of it kind of, once you've done table stakes, I think is just showing people that you care.
Dude, the breakfast I did with them was such a big deal to them.
Totally.
And, and then I messed up, and we were supposed to have a barbecue last year, and we got busy and we didn't, and I got raked over the coals for it. And here I am, I'm oh, it's just a barbecue. But to them, it was a big deal. And so we had it, and they were so happy. And I think that we as owners and CEOs, I think we say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But like those little things, it's not the grand gesture. It's those little moments, man.
Yeah. Because I think a lot of it is like, everybody there are moments where clients are going to do something that pisses your team off, or somebody else is going to do something that pisses your team off, or I'm going to, ask them to do something they don't want to do, or ask them to work late, or we've changed a policy that, look, we have to use a new technology, like, et cetera. There are some things that it's my job to say, hey, we have to do this. And I know you're not going to like it. And it's because I'm doing this now, because we got to implement this technology now. Because if we don't start using this, we just did it last year with change how we did 1099. So we're using a new product called Keeper, automating it, streamlining it. But for some people, it was, it was less efficient than the old way. Mm-hmm. And you just like, when you ask people on your team to do stuff they don't want to do, is there a well of, okay, I'll do this, but I like working here, so it's okay, built up? Or is it just like another straw? And that's going to be the one that breaks the camel's back. And I think that's why, like, generally speaking, we try to be generous everywhere we can, because we're just trying to fill that well up so that when we really need it, people are willing to lean in, versus like, look, we could probably have higher margins if we cut some of these things I just talked about. Or, we spent $80,000 last year on our company retreat. We'll probably spend $100,000 this year. It could probably cost less. We're not like going around on the Ritz-Carlton, so it could cost more too. But like, I could watch it for another 10, 15 grand, but like, I'm not going to do that, because when January happens and our team needs to work an extra 20% than they usually do, I want people to do that without, a ton of kicking and screaming. And you need to like just build a well of trust with your team for when the times get hard, because they will get hard, especially in a small business.
Totally. I love that.
That's my soapbox.
Yeah. But before we get out of here,
yeah, man.
What's your greatest golf shot of all time? You know what? It might have been with me. So the guy comes up with, I'll paint the picture
set the
for you.
Set the stage.
The guy comes up with coffee, looking sharp. Might have been wearing a sweater like he is now. It was cold that day, windy.
Always.
I think he came in like the 5th or 6th hole, and it was a 220 carry all over water.
Driver. Yeah, I know exactly.
To a green.
About.
Yeah. 220 driver, and you put it on the green. No warm-ups, no nothing.
It was literally my first shot. They're like, who the hell is this guy? I don't have a hole-in-one, so, hopefully that will be the best shot. Honestly, you'll like the story. This is what comes to mind. So I proposed to my wife on a golf course, and she's not a golfer, but she wanted... we've been dating for 7 years. Like, we've been together for a long time. Couldn't wait to get married. Like, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. But we wanted it to be a surprise. And like, we're both pretty busy. We live in Northern California. It's beautiful. But if I said like, let's go for a hike or let's go to the beach, like, dead giveaway. Like, we never do that, So but I wanted her to be outside. So because there's so much natural beauty here in California, like literally the only idea I could come up with was like, hey, let's go play 9 holes. There's a golf course nearby. It's got a beautiful par 3 course on the water. So we went, she plays a little bit, and we went. And then the hole where I was going to do it, I was like, the green's here. And then I wanted to hit miss it intentionally left of the green to get closer to the water. And I'd be like, oh, come over here to where I hit it. Like, I'm going to show you something. And then that's where I was going to get down on a knee. And I was obviously nervous. It was a wedge, short hole, but I didn't chunk it. And I actually hit it left of the green where I wanted to. And then we got engaged. So I think that's probably the most pressure I've ever felt on the golf course. And I hit a good shot. So that's the one that sticks out right now.
I love that.
Hopefully, I just was a part of my first hole-in-one. My brother-in-law had one when I was playing with him, and it's like, gosh, that's so much fun. So I hope one day I get one. But until then, it'll be the shot on the 4th hole when we got engaged.
That's awesome. If people want to track down the business, they want to track down you, how would they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my company, it's called System 6. My email, you can shoot me an email. It's Chris@System6. Spell out the number. So SYSTEMSIX.com, or on Twitter, I'm CTW_SMB. Yeah. And look, I'm always happy to talk to people. Really, really 2 things. One, about, if you're thinking about searching for a small business to acquire, SBA, sort of self-funded, the Twitter world, traditional search fund, almost like private equity. I know that world very well. That's where I came from. So happy to help people think through like the pros and cons of both those paths. There's a lot of ways to go buy a small business. And then obviously we serve small business owners who are doing at least $1 million of revenue. If they need help with their outsourced kind of back office finance needs, we'd love to give them time back and get them more accuracy in their numbers so that they can, spend more time like you are right now running the business or doing other things in your life. Because you're not worrying about, getting the bills paid.
Let me tell you something right now. Okay. 2 years ago, there was a woman who I was helping a group of people get sober, and it would take me literally 30 to 45 days and about 5 anxiety attacks to do my taxes. Okay. Because I have crap everywhere, and I was trying to get better about it. And I was like, she's starting this business, and she was like, I'll do your bookkeeping, and like, I'll get you set up. And so I've been paying her for 2 years. It takes me 2 minutes to do my taxes, and it's the best money I've ever spent in my entire life. I don't think people understand. Everybody's so focused on sales and marketing. Proper bookkeeping will change your life and allow you to sleep at night. And that's not a promotion. It's just from real life right here.
Yeah. And there's lots of good firms out there that do it. So like, we're not the only ones, but I think that message first is like, have somebody managing your bookkeeping in your business so that you have real visibility into cash flow, because expenses are being, put in the right months. You're recording liabilities so you don't forget that you have, X bill that's due 2 months from now, and then you spend down your cash and then you forget. We have some very sophisticated clients. We're doing real sophisticated stuff, but for a lot of small business owners, just like the basics are going to be very, very helpful.
Yep.
And also it just gives you time back, right? Like, one, it gives you more visibility into how to run your business, but two, especially if you're not doing payroll, you don't need to be paying bills. You can approve bills online, but you shouldn't be like writing a check. You can have a lot more time back to spend however you want.
Totally. Guys, if you got some value from this episode, send it to a friend, rate us and review us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Awesome.